Hi, this is Derek Murphy from creativity.com. This is the second video in a three-part series on how to write, publish, and market your book in 2017. The last video was about writing a book, but something I didn't talk about was productivity and motivation, because a lot of people, like I said in the previous video, people usually get stuck when they don't know what happens next. So if you're writing a story and you're not sure what happens next, or you don't know if this scene works or what these characters are even doing, that's usually a problem with plotting. And if you're not a plotter, I suggest you become a plotter. If you're a pantser, which means you write by the seat of the pants, and you're writing successfully and your books are successful, if that's working for you, that's great. You don't need to change. But if you're having trouble finishing a book, and it's frustrating, you've been doing it for 5 years and you just can't seem to wrap it up, that's probably a sign that you need to be plotting. And plotting will help you, even if it's not comfortable for you or you don't feel like it's natural. Writing is a skill that can be learned, and it's not necessarily just something that comes to you from inspiration. So you really need to, if you're serious about writing a book and publishing a book, you need to do whatever works for you. And I strongly suggest learning how to plot a book or getting some simple plotting structure ideas and outlining the book will really help you to actually finish it. However, the big problem about writing a book is that it's probably your part-time, your hobby. It's something you'd like to do someday, but you don't really have the pressure to get it done. So for me personally, the way that I finally got over that hurdle was to put my books up on pre-order. So I put books up on pre-order a couple months in advance. So I had to finish writing the book because people were buying the book on Amazon. It was already out there, it was available. It's not the end of the world if you miss your pre-order, if you don't finish your book in time for the pre-order. Generally, you'll lose your pre-order privileges for a year. More recently, sometimes I don't finish the book in time for my pre-order, but I'll still upload a file that's, as much as I have, and then I'll link to my site where they can pick up the rest of the book that I didn't have time to finish, which isn't ideal. The first time you publish a book, of course, you usually want to leave yourself like a year or two, but the problem is when you have that much time, when you think, oh, like if you don't set a date, if you just think, oh, I'm going to do it sometime in the future, then you'll never really get it done. So the easiest way for me, not the easiest way, it's extremely stressful, there's a lot of pressure, but without that stress and pressure, I wouldn't have gotten any books finished. So now I put up books for pre-order, they're outlined, I have the covers already, and I have to write them. I have a book that's going to come out in a month that's outlined, but I haven't started writing it yet, so I have 30 days to write the book. Yes, it's very stressful, but if you give yourself the hard deadline and put it out there and make it public, it's much more likely you'll do it. It'll be hard, it'll be frustrating, but you'll actually do the work. Because the big secret about writing a book is it is really hard. It takes a lot of work. My books I might work 8 to 10 hours a day for 30 days. Actually, it's not true, because the curious thing about writing fiction, I'm fine, like for nonfiction, I can just sit down and write tons of nonfiction about whatever I know. But for fiction, it's exhausting to hold an entire story in your head. So what I find myself when I have writing days, which is most days, I might write for 10 or 15 minutes, hopefully more than that, but I mean, I could procrastinate all day. I could procrastinate 8 hours and then get in 15 minutes of writing and write a couple thousand words, and that will still be a successful writing day. It's draining to try to write a novel. It is something you need to get in the habit of, but it's never going to be easy. It's always going to take a lot of motivation. I think motivation is kind of a weird word, because if you want to write a book and you're not writing a book, it's probably because the process is frustrating for you. So I'm not sure that motivation is the thing that you actually need, but I think you need the pressure. I think you need a hard deadline and an expectation that this has to get done. Because if it doesn't have to get done, you're not going to do it. Like anything that's hard and not very enjoyable is not something you're just going to get up in the morning and want to do, unless there's a hard deadline and there's a pressure and you have to do it. Anyway, that's my main motivational tip for getting the writing done, is to announce it, get a cover designed, put up a website, set a date, even if it's just for yourself. Set a date and put it on your fridge and say, I'm going to finish this book by this date. But the more you make that deadline a real deadline, not a soft deadline, the more likely you're actually going to finish the book. And it's frustrating the first time. It might be kind of hard, but I think that's a good way for a lot of writers to actually start to get the writing done. But this video is actually about how to publish a book in 2017. So I talked for 5 minutes already on something that's not really related to the topic of the video. But for publishing, actually, it's super simple. There's two paths to publishing. You can either traditionally publish, which means you pitch your query to an agent or a publisher and see if they want to publish you. That's one way to go. If you're publishing for the first time and you really want to do it that way, that's fine. Generally, it might take several months. I would shoot for like 30 or 40 rejection letters. Don't give up if you only get a few rejection letters, because you should probably be shooting for lots and lots, and then maybe you'll get one. Actually, let me rephrase that. First, I would send out a few. I'd get 2 or 3 rejection letters, and then I would tweak my query, and I'd make everything better. If I'm getting rejection letters, it means I'm doing something wrong or I'm not doing something well enough. So just sending it out to more people may not be the solution you're looking for. You may really want to focus on fixing your query, fixing your synopsis summary, making the book outline sound better, more appealing, improving your pitch, because you're basically trying to sell your idea to someone else, and they're going to have to sell the idea to someone else. So just getting very clear about what your pitch is, what your book is about, who it's for, those things can really help to attract an agent or a publisher. That's one way to do it. Publishing takes about a year or 2 to publish traditionally. Generally, advances are less than $10,000 for first-time writers. But even if you get like a $30,000 advance, which is, I wouldn't say rare, but it's not, I think the average is under $10,000. So the majority by far, maybe 80% or 90% of traditionally published authors make less than $10,000. But if you get a bigger advance, that's great, except it's still not a living. You might make $30,000, so it's $10,000 probably stretched out over 3 years, because you'll get a little bit up front, and then you'll get half when the book is actually published, and then you might get some royalties later, but that's doubtful because the majority of traditionally published books don't make money, so they don't earn out their advance. So that's something to know. Traditional publishing generally isn't very lucrative for the author. Even the very successful, award-winning, traditionally published authors aren't making lots of money with their writing. I'm a big fan of self-publishing, not only because it's much faster and it gives you more control, but also because you can earn more with your books if you're self-publishing, as long as you do a lot of things right and you're writing books that readers want to read and they're willing to pay for. The danger of self-publishing is that it's difficult to do everything yourself and to learn how to do everything yourself. So there's a lot of like small presses or small publishing agencies who have services. Generally, the average cost of publishing a book, I've heard, is $3,000 to $5,000. Editing is roughly 1 or 2 cents a word. So for a 100,000 word novel, that's going to be $1,000. I think that's right. $1,000 or so for editing is pretty normal. Then maybe $500 for the cover design, a couple $100 for formatting. Then you have to build the author website, which can be a couple $1,000s. These things, they add up. You don't have to spend this much money on any of this stuff. All of my resources for the past couple years have been focused on helping authors to do all of this by themselves without a big budget, or to learn how to do it so that they can do it themselves without hiring someone. I don't necessarily believe hiring someone expensive is the way to go, especially for your first book, and especially if you've written something and you don't know if there's a market or you don't know how people are going to respond to it. I don't think spending $5,000 to publish a book is an investment, because most books aren't going to make any money. Most books weren't written for a market, so they're not going to earn back the money that you spend in them. That's something you should know before you spend a lot of money. So the easy thing to do that I did for my first books is I would just put my books out perma-free, which means basically you can make your books free on iBooks and Kobo and other sites with draft to digital. Generally, when you want to self-publish an ebook and put it out and distribute it to other ebook retailers, you'll use Smashwords or draft to digital. Those are kind of 2 big ones. I prefer draft to digital now just because it's a little easier to use, but you can put books there and set the price to free. But on Amazon and Kindle, they don't allow you to set a book to free. However, when you publish on draft to digital and set it for free, you can tell Kindle to price match the book for free. So I've done that because rather than spend a lot of time or money trying to build a platform or to advertise my book. I just gave them away for like 6 months. The advantages are I built a really big platform, and also they get a lot of reviews. So something I've done recently is, now that I have these perma-free books that have like 200 or 300 reviews on them, I can update the book and switch to paid, and they'll start selling right away because they have all this history on Amazon and other book retailer sites. That's something that I personally will use when I launch books in the future, because it works really well for me. But when you want to publish a book, the only really thing, like publishing a book, all that really entails is a cover and the interior formatting. So for print, you have the front and the back and the spine that wraps around. It's not easy to do yourself. I've tried to put out templates and tutorials and guides for authors to do their own cover design, and it's still not very easy. I probably recommend 99 Designs most often as an easy place to get a reasonably good quality cover on a budget. I think it's $200 or $300, maybe like $400 if you want the full print and ebook and everything. But almost always, like even if you hire someone from Fiverr.com to make a $20 cover, it might be better than the one you tried to make yourself. I have lots of videos about cover design, but generally indie authors screw up cover design because they're focused on the scene and the picture, and they're trying to describe what happens in the book. They're trying to communicate too much information to readers, and all the cover really needs to do is be attractive to the right readers and tell them what genre it's in, not to sell the book. The sales, the information, the details, that's the sales description, that's the summary. But if your cover doesn't get them to read the sales description, your cover's wasting space. It's what's the word? Whether you've done it yourself or hired someone, if it's not a cover that's getting, if it's not working, if it's not getting people to read the description, then it's a failed cover, and you need a new cover. You need to do something else, because the cover is the really easy way to get people to read what your book is about, or a really easy way to push everyone away if they don't know that the book is for them, if it's not attractive, if it doesn't tell them what genre it's in. And that's the main problem, is just a lot of authors, they make a cover that isn't obvious or is a little too creative or artsy. A lot of authors want to do something different. I see stuff about how authors should avoid cliched covers, and that's not really true at all. You want your cover to look very similar to all the covers in your genre that are selling well, while also being very professional. You don't want something that's creative and different and unique, because readers won't study your cover. They're not going to look at your cover and try to figure out what your cover means. They're just going to skip it, and they're just going to go to somebody else that looks like something they want to read. So it has to be obvious and clear and beautiful and attractive to the right readers. But that's the cover. So the cover is important. You can spend money on it, or you can try to do it yourself, but it is a really important piece of your book. And the rest of it is just the interior formatting and the ebook conversion. So for interior formatting, I have templates on DIYbookformats.com, but generally, the nice thing about formatting is that most books are the same. They're formatted the same. There's not that many variations, where to put your page numbers or your headers or whatever, but most formatting, you just want it to be clean and professional and simple. You can do it yourself in Microsoft Word. It's a pain, but it can be done. I generally format in Word just because it's easy, and I know I'm always going to need to update things. So what you don't want to do is pay someone else to format for you and then have to keep paying them whenever you have new changes, because you're always going to have changes or updates, or you've missed typos. The first time you publish something, there's always going to be things you missed. However, if you want something to look really nice, like if I publish something, I might put it out there in Word just to get it out there. But once it's really good and I'm sure I want to go professional with it, I'll get it reformatted in Adobe InDesign, which is a higher quality word layout software. And I'll use that to make a better looking book, and then I'll upload those to Createspace. When you're publishing a book, if you're self-publishing, you really want to be doing print on demand, which means POD, where you upload your full print cover to PDF and your full print interior PDF of the manuscript. You put those on Createspace or Lightning Source. Ingram Spark is the other big one. I'll talk about those a little bit more in a minute. But generally, you just have to upload those files, and when people order the book, they will print one book and send it out for you. The reason this is a good idea is because you don't want to order 500 copies and get them delivered to you and have them sit in your garage for a couple of years. And then you don't want to be going out to events and trying to sell books one-on-one, because it's really hard work, and that you're not going to see much return for all that time and effort you spent. You'll see much better return focusing on ebooks. If your ebooks are selling really well, you'll sell some print copies, but print copies only sell like, for every 10 ebooks you'll sell maybe one print copy. So it's not really worth it to spend a lot of time focusing on print books. I tell people, like a lot of authors, they focus on that. I want to get into bookstores, I want to get into libraries. That's kind of the dream of most authors, but it's not where you should be focused on, because you need your books to start making money so that you can earn a living as an author, so that you can actually start doing more writing and write more books. Because the easiest way to make more money as a writer is to keep putting out more books. So if it takes you 2 years to write a book, it's going to be difficult for you to see a lot of profit from your writing. Whereas if you can do everything quickly and publish, I have friends who publish every month. I'm not quite there yet. I can write a book in a month if I work, 10 hours a day every day. But generally, I think like 2 or 3 months would be feasible for me. If you're writing full time, it's totally reasonable to write a book in a few months. The reason most people spend a couple years on it is because it's not a full-time job, and they don't have the motivation, they don't have a deadline. So you can just kind of procrastinate forever because you don't have to get it done. If you're a real full-time career author, you're getting paid for every book you're putting out, and that's where your income comes from. So you have to keep writing more books, or you won't make a living with your writing and you won't have any money. So with that kind of pressure and motivation, you really have to get the work done. With Createspace and Lightning Source, I prefer Createspace because it's easier to set up, it's easier to upload the files. I've compared the print quality between Ingram Spark and Lightning Source and Createspace. I think they're generally about the same. It's more a difference of whether you format it in Microsoft Word or Adobe InDesign, and whether you have a really nice cover. Those are going to matter more than who you use for printing. The reason people talk about Ingram Spark or Lightning Source, I use them both because I'm pretty sure it used to be, I think Lightning Source is the big parent company. It used to be a huge pain in the ass to use. Now they've tried to make it a little easier for self-publishers to use it by setting up Ingram Spark, which is kind of the new division. I think the main problems are that it costs more. They're much pickier about the files, so you need to be a designer to know what kind of, like, if your files are getting rejected and you don't know what's wrong. It's usually like a color profile or something really technical, and you won't know how to fix it. But also they charge you for every new file you upload. So if you keep uploading new files, like when I publish a book, I'll upload like 5 or 6 files, because every 3 days I'll find more mistakes, or I'll get some comments and I'll fix something or change something. So I don't want to be using something that charges me every time I upload new files. But also people say they like, a lot of authors, their first time, and I did this too, my first time I published a book, I signed up for Ingram Spark or Lightning Source, and I did it because people say bookstores and libraries can order your books if you set them up on Lightning Source. And that's true technically, like they can order your books. However, they're not going to order your books unless people are asking for your books, or unless they see your book in a lot of media, or if they look you up. Like if you approach a bookstore and ask them to stock your book, they'll look you up on Amazon, and they'll see if you're selling, they'll see how many reviews you have. They won't just buy your book unless they've heard something about it. So unless you're getting lots and lots of press or media attention, or you're already selling really, really well, bookstores and libraries aren't going to be interested in ordering your books. And then, especially bookstores, they only order books that have returnability. So they order books from big bookstores on the premise that if the books don't sell in the bookstores, they'll send them back and get a refund, which is how bookstores operate, which is kind of a weird business model. But bookstores will basically order a bunch of stuff and send everything back that doesn't sell. Publishers eat a lot of the loss. So they're publishing a lot of books, they sell them to bookstores, but then, like, hopefully they have some bestsellers that sell enough money to cover all the other books that got sent back and pulped, because they won't make money on those books. They'll be losing money. If you're a self-publishing author, you can't afford to be offering refunds to all the books that didn't sell in the bookstores. It would bankrupt you pretty quickly. So that's not something you want to be doing. And just because you set it up on Lightning Source and you set it up for a 50% discount, or even if you do everything right, it's not going to, you're not going to get very many orders. Even if you get a handful of orders a month, it might come to like $50 or $100, which would barely cover the setup costs for uploading the book to Lightning Source. So that's why I use Createspace, because it's easier, it's cheaper, it's faster, and also I focus on Amazon. I think Amazon is the biggest market. I know there are reasons people avoid Amazon. I know that you may feel like putting all your eggs in one basket and giving Amazon too much power is dangerous for your author career, because someday they could just change the rules and screw you over. That's all totally true. However, right now for me, in 2017, I make the most money if my books are on Amazon and if I focus on ebooks, and if my ebooks are in Kindle Unlimited, which is something I'll talk about in the next video. That's the most profitable place for me to have my writing in my books. So that may change in the future, and I'm flexible enough I can just try something new. But for most of the authors I know who are making lots of money with their fiction especially, Kindle Unlimited is a place to be, because you get paid by the page reads. I'll talk a little bit more about this stuff in the next video, which is about marketing your book and launching your book. This video is about publishing. Like I said, really like when people think about publishing a book, they're really thinking about design, which is just formatting your interior, converting that interior to ebook, which is a little difficult because it's kind of like code, but I have a free online ebook converter that you can use. And then also putting it out there, so like getting it into libraries and bookstores. That's what most people think of when they think of publishing a book. That's not something I would focus on, at least the print stuff. I think it's fine to put up a print copy of your book. I tried to get into bookstores and libraries when I did my first book. I sold the foreign rights to some of my books. I've done things, like I tried really hard and I did reasonably well, but it's so much work, and I make so much more money now with so much less effort by focusing on the ebooks and just putting up the ebooks on Amazon and making sure that the sales rank sticks really well. That allows me to write full-time because I'm earning money from my books, which is a challenge. Most authors, they focus on the print books and they can't sell the print books, so they're spending all their time like at events trying to sell books one-on-one to readers. Anyway, maybe this video has been helpful. I hope so. The next video is going to be talking about marketing your book and launching your book, so I hope that one will help, and I'll see you in a second on that one.